Unit 30 Administrative Reforms. When India achieved independence, it inherited a colonial legacy in administration, which was suited to the needs of revenue collection and maintenance of law and order. During the years following independence, the Indian government was mostly preoccupied with the problems of administrative integration of the princely states and the rehabilitation of the refugees and the displaced. With India becoming republic, the objectives for the development of the country was spelled out. The focus shifted to the social and economic development of the country. Attention was directed to people-oriented administration. Administration had to be responsive to the development needs of the people. Thus, there was a need to reform the administration to suit the needs of independent India. The Government of India undertook various measures for bringing in reforms in administration. It constituted various committees and commissions and organized conferences to suggest reforms in administration. We will be discussing them in the ensuing sections. We will first discuss the meaning, needs, and types of administrative reforms, which will be followed by the reform steps and measures undertaken in the country since independence. Meaning of administrative reforms. Administrative reforms have been variously defined. There are many names given to this phenomenon of reform, such as administrative change, administrative transformation, administration restructuring, administrative re-engineering, renewal, realignment, etc. The idea is that administration is in need of realignment and readjustment, and it must evolve to a new form and format through a paneled, systemized, and well-directed process. Administrative reforms can, in short, be defined as artificial inducement of administrative transformation against resistance. This definition highlights three distinct elements, namely, administrative reform is artificially stimulated. It is transformatory process, and there is existence of resistance to change process. Obviously, reforms do not take place by themselves. They are premeditated, well studied and planned programs with definite objectives in view. Reform is an induced and manipulated change. For it involves persuasion, collaboration, and generation of conviction for betterment. Reform is more than a series of incremental changes or marginal adjustments, though it may result from cumulation of small changes which periodically creates requirement for comprehensive and systematic efforts. Reform paves the way for new order. It refers to the formal, mechanistic, and meditated process of a structured change. Need for administrative reforms. The distinguishing characteristic of modernized social system is its ability to deal with continuous systematic transformations. Society has to change in order to free itself from the shackles of traditionalism, cope with the changes in environment, adopt fresh innovative culture, adopt new knowledge and technology, and crave for a new order through elimination of the old structures and system. Administrative reform is but a part of the universality of this change. For administration is nothing but a subculture, a social subsystem reflecting the values of the wider society. Administration must also correspondingly change to be in step with outer modernization process, or else disequilibrium would set in, resulting in imbalances, dysfunctionalities, maladjustment, and goal displacement. According to Fred W. Riggs administrative reform is a pro- according to Fred W. Riggs, administrative reform is a problem of dynamic balancing. Since public administration functions within a political context, its basic character, content, and style of functioning is greatly influenced by the political environment. Its instrumental dynamics and process is in not merely setting national goals, priorities, or deciding between competing values and allocating resources, but also in devising the most effective instrument for translating these policies into successful program realities. Added to this, the advances in information and communication technology and the state's pervasive role in managing national assets and resources, controlling the entire economy through regulation and development, ensuring a just and equitable economic order, correcting age old social imbalances through newer forms of institution making, and ushering in an egalitarian social system, has thrown up new tasks for administration. This requires fundamental and foundational improvement in the administrative capabilities. The latter, in turn, requires proper planning, educational rearrangement, skill generation, attitude formation, and a host of other structural functional reorganization. This being the ecology of administrative reform. The success of administrative reform programs postulates an interdisciplinary and multidimensional approach. With the 90s come the market reforms, and there was an emphasis on structural adjustment. Good governance is the stress of the governments of the day, with focus on accountability, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and decentralization. With focus on good governance today, there has been a greater change in the conventional role of the state, the government, and the bureaucracy. Today, there is shift from responsiveness to partnership and collaboration. The importance is given to people's participation in governance and the improvement of multiple actors. With citizens' participation and collaboration taking center stage, the government have to act as partners with the citizens. Administration cannot fulfill the newer roles with the traditional organization and methods. It has to be people friendly and work on public trust. Hence, the bureaucracy has to change to adopt to the new role. This need for change in turn necessitates reforms. Types of administrative reforms. Administrative reforms, according to Gerald E. Kaiden, can be of four types. Reforms imposed through political changes. Reforms introduced to remedy organizational rigidity. Reforms through the legal system and reforms through changes in attitude. Reforms imposed through political changes. Administration is shaped and influenced by political forces. The change in political scene also affects administration. Structure and working of administration is affected by political changes. Reforms introduced to remedy organizational rigidity. Bureaucratic structures have to change to be flexible. The rigidity in the structure of administration has to be removed. The changes can take place in the form of restructuring, reinvention, realignment, rethinking, and re-engineering. Reforms through the legal system. Laws pertaining to administrative reforms can lead to significant changes in administration. Legalization is normally preceded by consultations and deliberations in several forums, such as committees, commissions, press, etc. Reforms through changes in attitude. Beings are an important part of any organization. Change in their attitude will help in bringing reforms. No legal, structural, and political change can lead to desired reform unless and until these are appreciated and accepted by the people working in the organization. Administrative reforms in India since independence. The context for reforms. When India became independent in 1947, it faced problems of partition, refugees, migration, retirement of a great number of administrative personnel, problem of integration of princely states, etc. The new government adopted the ideology of welfare of the people through socio-economic development, which led to greater proliferation of tasks and functions. To take up the welfare programs and challenges the administrative machinery which was inherited from the colonial regime and rendered weak by erosive circumstances and stressful situations accompanying independence, had to be revamped and reinforced. Administration, as the instrument for designing and implementing all the developmental programs, had to be restructured, reformed, and renewed. Various measures were taken up by the GOI in administrative reforms. We will discuss these measures now. Secretariat Reorganization Committee 1947. The Government of India set up the Secretariat Reorganization Committee in 1947, which was headed by Gurujia Shankar Bajpayee. The committee inquired into the matters of personnel shortages, better utilization of available manpower, and improvement of methods of work in the Central Secretariat. Sri N. Gopalswamy Iyengar Report 1950. Sri N. Gopalswamy Iyengar conducted a comprehensive review of the working of the machinery of the central government, which was presented in his report on reorganization of the machinery of central government. A.D. Gorwala Committee 1951. In July 1951, a committee headed by Sri A.D. Gorwala, in its report on public administration, underlined the need for having a clean, efficient, and impartial administration. Paul H. Appleby Report 1953 and 1956. In continuation of these efforts, the Government of India invited an American expert, Mr. Paul H. Appleby, to suggest reforms in Indian administration. Appleby submitted two reports. His first report, namely Public Administration in India, Report of a Survey, 1953, dealt with administrative reorganization and practices. His second report, namely Re-examination of India's administrative system, with special reference to administration of government's industrial and commercial enterprises, 1956, dealt with matters pertaining to streamlining organization, work procedure, recruitment, training in these enterprises. Among the 12 recommendations made, the Government of India accepted two of his recommendations. First, related to the establishment of professional training institute, namely the Indian Institute of Public Administration, for promoting research in public administration. The second related to the setting up of a central office to provide leadership in respect to organization, management, and procedures. As a result, an Organization and Methods (O&M) division was set up in March 1954 in the Cabinet Secretariat for improving the speed and quality of the government business and streamlining its procedures. O&M units and work study units were set up in the ministries' departments. The focus was on improving the paperwork management and methods. A manual of office procedure was prepared for all ministries and departments. Committee on Plan Projects 1956. In 1956, the Planning Commission set up a committee on plan projects to evolve organization norms, work methods and techniques, with a view to achieve economy and efficiency in the implementation of the plan projects. In 1964, a Management and Development Administration Division was also established as a part of this committee to promote the use of modern tools of management. It also undertook studies on problems related to development administration at the district level. Committee on Prevention of Corruption 1962. The committee was set up under the chairmanship of K. Santhanam to study the causes of corruption, to review the existing setup for checking corruption, and to suggest measures for improvement. The committee stressed on the need of streamlining the procedures, relating to prevention of corruption and recommended the setting up of Central Vigilance Commission (CVC), Administrative Reform Commission (ARC) 1966. The Administrative Reform Commission was set up in January 1966 under the chairmanship of K. Hanumanthayya. Its term of reference was the widest as it covered the entire gamut of public administration at the center as well as in the states. The Commission submitted 20 reports containing more than 500 recommendations. These lead to major and minor changes in administration as well as paved the way for further thinking which lead to more reforms. The major recommendations of the ARC are mentioned below. Number 1. It spelled out the tasks for the Department of Administrative Reforms. The Commission suggested that the department should concentrate on undertaking studies on administrative reforms that are of a foundational nature, creating O&M expertise in the ministries and departments and providing training to the staffs in their O&M units in modern managerial techniques and providing guidance to the O&M units in implementing the improvements and reforms. Second, it recommended the reactivating of the O&M units in different ministries and departments. Third, it called for setting up of a special cell in the Central Reforms Agency to give effect to the reports of ARC. And fourth, it stated that the Central Reforms Agency should be research based in matters dealing with the methods of work, staffing pattern and organizational structures. Kothari Committee 1976. The Committee on Recruitment and Selection Methods under the chairmanship of Sri Kothari was set up in 1976 by the UPSC to examine and report on the system of recruitment to all India services and Central Group A and B services. The committee in its report recommended for single examination for the AIS and Central Group A non-technical services. National Police Commission 1977. The commission was set up under the chairmanship of Sri Dharamveera to examine the role and functions of police with a special reference to control of crime and maintenance of public order, the method of magisterial supervision, the system of investigation and prosecution and maintenance of crime records. The commission made over 500 recommendations extending to a wide area of interest relating to police administration. Economic Reforms Commission 1981. The commission was set up with L.K. Jha as the chairman. The main function assigned to the commission related to the study of important areas of economic administration with a view to suggest reforms. The Commission submitted a number of reports to the Government of India which advocated the rationalization and modernization of the economic administrative system to pave way for a new economic order. Commission on Center-State Relations 1983. Mr. R.S. Sarkaria was the chairman of this commission. Its term of reference was to examine and review the working of existing arrangements between the Union and states with regards to power, functions and responsibilities in all spheres and make recommendations as the changes and measures needed. National Commission to review the working of the Indian Constitution 2003 under the chairmanship of Chief Justice Venkata Chalia was set up to examine the working of the Indian Constitution. Conference of Chief Secretaries 1996. A Conference of Chief Secretaries of the States and Union Territories was organized by Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances (AR and PG) on 20th November 1996. The focus of the conference was on having an accountable, open and citizen-friendly government and on improving the performance and integrity of public services. The follow-up actions of the conference included: number 1, setting up of an interministerial working group on right to information and transparency headed by Sri H.D. Shourie. Number 2. Constituting an expert group headed by Sri N. Vittal to look into the computerization in personal system and public services. Third, formulation of citizens' charters by all ministries with public interfaces. Fourth, steps to provide timely disposal of departmental inquiries and vigilance proceedings. Fifth, developing grievance readdressal machinery. And sixth, initiating civil service reforms, especially including the transfers and promotions in center and states. Chief Ministers Conference 1997. In pursuance of the objectives of accountability, transparency, and responsiveness spelled out by the Conference of Chief Secretaries, a national debate was generated on the above mentioned issues to elicit opinion of the wider public, which included officials, experts, voluntary agencies, media, academia, and citizens groups. This debate culminated in an action plan for effective and responsive government. The action plan was discussed and adopted in the Conference of Chief Ministers on 24th May 1997 to be implemented by both the center and the state governments. The action plan has three components, namely: number 1, making government accountable and citizen friendly; number 2, transparency and right to information; third, improving the performance and integrity of the public services. We will discuss the three components now. Accountable and citizen friendly government. To make the government and administration accountable and friendly to the citizens, the following steps are undertaken. A. Implementation of Citizens' Charter. The Government of India has directed ministries and departments with public interface to formulate a Citizens' Charter laying down the standards of service and time limits, avenues of grievance redressal, and provision for monitoring. The Department of AR and PG has coordinated efforts in this regard to see the adoption of the Citizens' Charter in ministries, departments, and agencies of the center and states. B. Redressal of public grievances. Director of grievances have been appointed in every ministry and department for redressal of public grievances in the central government. The time limits for disposal of public grievances have been specified, and software has been developed for computerized, web-enabled, and networked monitoring of public grievance redressal mechanism. A compendium of guidelines has been published in this regard. Similarly, a standing committee of secretaries to Government of India has been set up under the chairmanship of the Cabinet Secretary to monitor the public grievance redressal mechanism of the central government. At the state level, states like Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh have made institutional arrangements to monitor the redressal of public grievances by Chief Minister's Secretariat. Likewise, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh have started special programs and campaign for taking administration to the people. Delhi has set up a public grievance commission, and Assam and Madhya Pradesh have also set up a separate department for the same. C. Reviews of laws, regulations, and procedures. The existing laws, regulations, and procedures are to be reviewed, amended, modified, and reformed in order to make them simpler. The action plan provides for center and states to look into the repeal of obsolete laws, reduction of time and cost for the disposal of cases in civil and criminal courts, and easy practice of approvals, sanctions, and issue of permits with a view to improving service delivery and bringing about transparency in the functioning of the government. A commission was set up under the chairmanship of Sri P.C. Jain for reviewing the steps taken by different ministries and departments in this regard. The Commission made certain recommendations relating to amendments and changes of changes in laws, regulations, and procedures, repeal of dysfunctional and irrelevant laws, documentation of laws and subordinate legislations, executive orders, instructions, and circulars, and simplification and consolidation of rules, regulations, and orders. The ministries and departments have been attempts in this regard by modifying and amending various acts and laws. The outdated laws have been repealed. The Department of AR and PG monitor the review of such rules and regulations by ministries and departments on a regular basis. The PC Jain Commission reviewed over 2500 laws and recommended repeal of about 1400 laws and amendment to about 241 laws. The follow-up action has been taken up under the supervision of a standing committee. D. People's participation, decentralization and devolution of powers. The action plan provides for the decentralization and devolution of powers. This will include people's participation consistent with the 73rd and 74th Amendments of the Constitution. Involvement of the people and voluntary agencies in the delivery of the services and devolution of administrative powers. People's participation has been ensured by providing constitutional status to the PRIs in the country. Elections are conducted for these bodies. There are around 2.5 lakh panchayats, of which about 2.25 lakh are gram panchayats, and they have elected approximately 3.4 million representatives at all levels. The urban local bodies have also been accorded similar status. With the extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996, the provisions of the 73rd and 74th Act have been extended to the tribal areas of 10 states, and all these states have enacted legislation to give effect to these provisions. Transparency and right to information. This provision in the action plan entails freedom of information to the public. This will include amendments to the Official Secret Act 1923 and Indian Evidence Act. The Freedom of Information Act 2003 has been passed. The Act seeks to provide freedom to every citizen to secure information under the control of public authorities. It seeks to make government open, transparent, responsive, and accountable to the people. This Act provides easy access to the people to all information relating to government activities and decisions except matters relating to national security. Most of the states, Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Delhi, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu too, have legislated the right to information. Information and Facilitation Counters (IFSCS) have been set up by ministries, departments, and organizations with large public interface in areas such as land records, passports, investigation of offences, administration of justice, tax collection and administration, issue of permits and license, etc. Information and communication technology based public service delivery has helped in promoting accountability and transparency in administration, improving the performance and integrity of public services. The action plan aims at improving the performance and integrity of the civil services. The civil servants are to adhere to ethical standards and be committed to basic principles of the Constitution such as secularism, social justice, rule of law, professionalism, and integrity. The plan also entails the preparation of the code of conduct for the central and state civil services. It also aims to regulate the relationship between the politicians and the civil servants. Amendment to the existing provisions for the prosecution and removal of corrupt officials as well as reward to the employees for doing good work is being taken up. The CBC has displayed on its website the names of various senior officials for whom it has recommended action for corrupt practices. Some of the states that have reported strengthening of vigilance procedures are Karnataka, Kerala, Maharashtra, Nagaland, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal. The strengthening of the investigation agencies and vigilance machinery such as Lok Ayukt CBI, CVC, income tax authorities, enforcement directorate, and revamping of existing procedures for departmental queries and vigilance proceedings have enabled in improving the integrity of public services. In this connection, recently CVC has been set up as an independent and autonomous body by executive orders. The provisions of giving a statutory status is still awaited and the bill is pending in the parliament. The Rajya Sabha passed the Central Vigilance Commission bill conferring statutory status on the CVC to probe offences committed by central public servants, corporations, societies, and local authorities. It provides for the CBI to obtain approval of the government before conducting any inquiry into an offence committed by officers of rank of Joint Secretary or above in any government department or PSU. The bill passed by the Lok Sabha in February 2003 provides for appointment of a CVC and not more than 4 vigilance commissioners. CBI and Enforcement Directorate have been brought in its purview in matters pertaining to investigation cases of the public servants. This will help in strengthening the vigilance machinery and provide for close networking of various related agencies. At the union level, the Lokpal Bill proposes to deal effectively with corruption in high places and the nexus between the politicians, civil servants, businessmen, and criminals. The bill is pending before the parliament. Several states like Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Delhi have already set up the corresponding institution of Lok Ayukta. A code of ethics has been drafted by the Government of India to improve the integrity of the civil servants. This will be in addition to the existing conduct rules. The state governments of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and West Bengal are also drafting code of ethics for civil servants, likewise providing institutional arrangements to look into the postings and transfers of officials to prevent political interference is being worked out. The central government has set up a civil service board to process proposals for the postings and transfers of the officials of the level of deputy secretary, director, and joint secretaries. This will curb the practice of frequent and arbitrary transfers of the public servants. Many of the states have also laid down the transfer policy pertaining to the civil servants. Fifth Pay Commission 1997. The commission was established under the chairmanship of Mr. Ratnavel Pandian. The commission in effect became more than a conventional pay commission and went into major issues of administrative reforms. The commission observed that entire machinery of the government has to be reinvented. Some of the important recommendations pertain to the downsizing of staff, determining the size of ministry department, no file movement beyond 3 hierarchical levels for a decision to be taken, injection of the concept of multi-skilling at the group D level and abandoning of the centralized planning model, evaluation of recent reforms. At the central level, various ministries and departments have been slow in implementing the reforms. The citizens' charters lack quality as many of the ministries and departments have renamed their information brochures as charters. The citizens as well as the employees also seem to be unaware of the charters. The computerization and networking is yet to be fully implemented by the center and the states. The review of laws has not been taken up at the required pace. The Lokpal bill is lingering in the parliament. The Department of AR and PG found that many of the information and facilitation counters set up by the ministries and departments are non-functional. The code of ethics is yet to come up. The voluntary retirement scheme has also not been properly taken up. At the state level, much is left to be achieved. The Right to Information Act has been placed in several states, but it has not been properly implemented. Nothing has been going beyond the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments. The states have not implemented the constitutional amendments in letter and spirit. As a result, decentralization has suffered a setback. The states have not adequately streamlined the function of the panchayats. In some states, more powers has been vested with the district and intermediate levels, whereas in some states, more powers have been given to the gram panchayats and the intermediate levels, and not to the district levels. The states have not provided these bodies with adequate staff and finances in relation to the subjects allocated to them. Again, the district planning committees have not been set up by a number of states. The Gram Sabha are not fully empowered as their powers and procedures have not been properly laid down. The urban local bodies have lost their importance due to multiplicity of corresponding institutions that have come up to carry out varied functions pertaining to housing, urban regulation, water and sewerage, and power distribution. Also, there is dearth of resources which creates problems for rendering better services. Ministry of Personal, Public Grievances and Pensions. A Department of Administrative Reforms was set up within the Ministry of Home Affairs in March 1964 to suggest reforms and conduct studies on all aspects of administration relating to that organization, methods and personnel. The O&M division, which was earlier functioning under the Cabinet Secretariat, was transferred to it. Based on the recommendations of the ARC, a Department of Personnel was set up in the Cabinet Secretariat on 1st August 1970. All matters pertaining to the civil services were transferred to this department from the Ministry of Home Affairs. Further, on 7th February 1973, the work relating to the Department of Administrative Reforms was also transferred to it, and the department was redesignated as Department of Personal and Administrative Reforms. In April 1977, the Department of Personal and Administrative Reforms was shifted from the Cabinet Secretariat to the Ministry of Home Affairs, and this arrangement continued till the end of 1984. Department of Personal and Administrative Reforms was also set up at the state level. The Department of Personal and Administrative Reforms was elevated to a full-fledged Ministry of Personnel and Training. Administrative Reforms, Public Grievances and Pensions in March 1985. On December 10, 1985, this ministry underwent further change in its nomenclature and was redesignated as the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, with three departments, namely Department of Personnel and Training (DOPT), Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, and Department of Pension and Pensioners' Welfare. A major highlight of this arrangement was that, firstly, the ministry was placed under the overall charge of the Prime Minister, assisted by a Minister of State. Secondly, the subject of public grievances was added to Department of Administrative Reforms. This allocation was effected under the rationale that it would provide a closer and integrated view of the inadequacies of the administrative system that gives rise to grievances on one hand, and how the administrative machinery could be made adaptive to the changing requirements on the other. Thirdly, a separate department was created to handle the subject of pension and pensioners' welfare. We will be basically concentrating on the functions of the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. Functions of the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. With the creation of the department under the ministry in 1985, the following tasks were assigned to it. Matters pertaining to the conduct, coordination and evaluation of the administrative reforms. Matters pertaining to organization and methods. All policy matters and issues relating to the redressal of public grievances in general and grievances pertaining to the central government agencies in particular. The functions relating to research in personal administration, liaison with state governments and professional institutions in personal matters was transferred to the department in 1989 from the Department of Personnel and Training. Summary. Administrative reforms are vital for the substance of the government machinery. The focus on good governance today has necessitated reforms in governments In government as well as in administration, the Government of India undertook reform measures since independence. Various commissions and committees were set up to suggest reforms in the administrative system. Organization, methods, and procedures. One of the important commissions to suggest reforms was the ARC, which made recommendations covering the entire gamut of administration at the center and states. Major reforms in the recent years pertain to the implementation of the Action Plan on Effective and Responsive Government. There are three vital components of the plan that aims at making administrator responsive and citizen friendly, transparent with the right to information and improvement of the performance and integrity of the civil services. The center and states have implemented the plan to certain extent. More steps in this regard are on the anvil. The Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances is the nodal agency of the GOIE for administrative reforms as well as for redressal of public grievances.